They told me, "You don't have kids, you don't need to join," didn't fight it. I just posted photos from a 5-star hotel balcony. Within minutes, their texts started pouring in nonstop. My name is Sarah, and I'm 34 years old, childless by choice and apparently, according to my former friend group, unworthy of their precious mommy tribe. What they didn't realize is that being child-free means I have something they desperately lack: disposable income, free time, and the ability to make spontaneous decisions that would make their structured, diaper-changing lives look absolutely miserable by comparison. Let me start from the beginning, because this story is delicious in its pettiness, and I want you to savor every detail like I did. It all started with Jessica Morrison, my college roommate turned suburban soccer mom. We'd been close for over a decade, surviving late-night study sessions, questionable dating choices, and the transition from ramen noodles to actual adult food. When she got pregnant with her first kid, I was genuinely excited for her. I threw her baby shower, bought expensive gifts, and listened to every detail about morning sickness and nursery themes. The problems began when little Aiden arrived. Suddenly, every conversation revolved around sleep schedules, diaper brands, and developmental milestones. I tried to be supportive, really I did. I asked about the baby, cooed over photos, and pretended to care about the difference between organic and regular baby food. But gradually, I noticed our friendship changing. Jessica started canceling plans last minute because the baby was fussy or Aiden had a rough night. When we did manage to get together, she'd spend the entire time on her phone, documenting every moment for social media or texting her new mom friends. I felt like I was competing with a tiny human for my best friend's attention, and losing badly. Then came the mom group. It started innocently enough. Jessica mentioned she'd joined a local mothers club for support and playdates. Soon, she was constantly referencing the girls and their advice on everything from sleep training to preschool choices. Amanda Chen, Rebecca Williams, Lisa Thompson, and Maria Gonzalez became her new inner circle, and I watched from the sidelines as my place in her life diminished. The final straw came 6 months ago during what I now call the incident. Jessica had been posting about this amazing weekend getaway the mom group was planning to a lake house. Photos of them researching activities, shopping for matching t-shirts, creating elaborate meal plans. It looked like the kind of fun weekend I used to share with these women before they all became mothers. I made an offhand comment to Jessica about how fun it looked and how I'd love to join them sometime. Her response was swift and brutal. "Oh, Sarah, you wouldn't really fit in. It's specifically for moms to decompress and talk about mom stuff. You don't have kids, so you wouldn't understand. You don't need to join." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd known these women for years. I'd been Amanda's maid of honor. I'd helped Rebecca move 3 times. I'd driven Lisa to the emergency room when she thought she was having a heart attack. It was anxiety. I'd celebrated Maria's engagement, divorce, and remarriage. But apparently, my lack of offspring made me irrelevant to their lives. I didn't fight it. I didn't argue or point out how hurtful and exclusionary they were being. I simply said, "I understand," and ended the conversation. But inside, I was planning. See, what my former friends didn't realize is that while they were spending their disposable income on diapers, formula, and daycare, I was investing in experiences. My marketing job pays well, and without the financial burden of children, I'd been saving for something special. I'd been planning a solo trip to Europe for months, researching boutique hotels and exclusive experiences. Their rejection just gave me the perfect opportunity to showcase exactly what they were missing. I booked a suite at the Hotel Villa San Martino in Positano, Italy, a 5-star property perched on the cliffs overlooking the Mediterranean. The suite cost more per night than most people spend on rent, but it was worth every penny for what I was about to do. I also made reservations at 3 Michelin-starred restaurants, booked a private yacht for a day trip to Capri, and arranged for a personal shopping experience on the Amalfi Coast. The trip was scheduled for the same weekend as their precious lake house retreat. I arrived in Italy on a Thursday, giving myself time to settle in and plan my social media strategy. The hotel was everything I'd hoped for and more: marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a private balcony with panoramic views of the coastline, and service so impeccable that I felt like royalty. My suite came with complimentary champagne, fresh flowers, and a personal concierge who anticipated my every need. Friday morning, while I knew they were probably packing minivans with car seats, juice boxes, and enough supplies to survive a nuclear apocalypse, I was sipping espresso on my balcony, watching the sunrise paint the Mediterranean in shades of gold and pink. I took my first strategic photo around 8 a.m., a casual shot of my legs stretched out on the balcony, perfectly pedicured toes visible, with a stunning coastline in the background. I captioned it simply, "Morning coffee never tasted so good," coffee emoji, sunrise emoji, hashtag Positano, hashtag living my best life. Within 5 minutes, the likes started rolling in. 10 minutes later, Jessica commented, "OMG Sarah. Where are you? This looks incredible." I didn't respond immediately. Let them wonder. Throughout the day, I documented everything. My breakfast of fresh pastries and fruit delivered to my room. The private yoga session on my balcony. The luxury spa treatment that cost more than their entire weekend getaway. Each post was carefully crafted to showcase not just the beauty of my location, but the absolute freedom and luxury of my choices. The lunch photo was particularly devastating. I'd arranged for a private dining experience on the hotel's terrace. The table was set with crisp white linens, crystal glasses, and flowers that probably cost more than a week's worth of their grocery budgets. The food was artfully plated, the wine was from a private reserve, and the view was absolutely breathtaking. Lunch with a view. Sometimes the best company is your own. Clinking glasses emoji, sparkles emoji, hashtag solo travel, hashtag blessed, hashtag Mediterranean. That's when the text started. Jessica was first. Sarah. You're in Italy? When did you plan this? Why didn't you tell me? Then Amanda. Girl, your posts are making me so jealous. How did you swing this trip? Rebecca chimed in. That hotel looks amazing. What's the name? I need to add it to my bucket list. Lisa was more direct. Okay, I'm dying. You have to tell me everything about this trip. The lake house is cute, but this looks like paradise. And Maria, ever the competitive one. Sarah, honey, you're making us all look bad with this fairy tale vacation. Share the details. I let their messages pile up while I got ready for dinner. I'd made reservations at La Sponda, the hotel's Michelin-starred restaurant, famous for its romantic ambience created by over 400 candles. I wore my favorite black dress, the one that cost more than most people's monthly car payments, and had my hair styled by the hotel's salon. The dinner photos were pure torture for anyone scrolling through social media. Multiple courses of exquisitely prepared food, each dish a work of art. Wine pairings that probably cost more per glass than they spent on their entire weekend. The candlelit atmosphere was magical, and I made sure every photo captured the romance and luxury of dining alone in one of the world's most exclusive restaurants. 9 courses of pure heaven. When you don't have to worry about bedtime routines, you can fully appreciate the art of fine dining. Wine glass emoji, sparkles emoji, hashtag Michelin, hashtag living my best life, hashtag solo luxury. That post broke them. My phone started buzzing nonstop. The texts were coming in so fast I couldn't keep up. Jessica, Sarah. We need to talk. You can't just disappear to Italy without telling anyone. Amanda, I'm supposed to be having fun at the lake, but all I can think about is your amazing trip. I'm so jealous I could cry. Rebecca, how much did this cost? I need a vacation like this in my life. Lisa, the lake house has bugs and the air conditioning is broken. Your hotel looks like actual paradise. I hate you. But also love you. But mostly hate you right now. Maria, I can't believe you planned this whole elaborate trip, and didn't tell any of us. We could have at least lived vicariously through you. But the best messages were the group ones. Apparently, my Italian adventure was the hot topic of conversation at their mom's weekend. Through various texts, I pieced together that they were sitting around the lake house, probably dealing with mosquitoes and trying to get decent Wi-Fi, scrolling through my posts and realizing exactly what they were missing. Jessica sent me a long message around 10 p.m. their time. Sarah, I don't know what to say. Your trip looks absolutely incredible. I keep showing the girls your photos and we're all just... wow. I know things have been weird between us lately, and maybe I haven't been the best friend. I get so caught up in mom life that I forget there's a whole world out there. Can we talk when you get back? I miss you. We all miss you. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered how casually they'd dismissed me, how easily they'd written me off because I didn't fit their narrow definition of relevance. So instead of responding with forgiveness, I posted another photo. This one was taken from my bed, Egyptian cotton sheets with a thread count higher than most people's credit scores, a bottle of Dom Perignon chilling in a silver bucket, and that view. Always that incredible view. Some nights are too beautiful for sleep. Grateful for the freedom to chase sunsets across the world, clinking glasses emoji, crescent moon emoji, hashtag gratitude, hashtag freedom, hashtag Positano. Saturday brought a whole new level of luxury documentation. I started with sunrise yoga on the beach, photographed by the hotel's professional photographer. Then a helicopter tour of the coast, where I got aerial shots that looked like something from a travel magazine. Lunch was at a cliffside restaurant accessible only by boat, and I made sure to capture every moment of the journey. The texts were becoming increasingly desperate. Amanda, Sarah, I need you to know that your posts are literally ruining my weekend. In the best way. But also the worst way. I can't stop looking at them. Rebecca, I've shown your photos to my husband 6 times. He wants to know why we never take trips like this. I told him it's because we have kids and a mortgage. He said maybe we should reconsider our priorities. Lisa, the lake house is fine, but it's not Italy. It's not 5-star anything. It's 3 moms trying to keep their toddlers from drowning while drinking wine from plastic cups. Your life looks like a magazine. The group dynamics were clearly shifting. What started as their bonding weekend was becoming a comparison fest, and I was winning by default. Sunday was my piece de resistance. I'd booked a private yacht for the day, complete with a crew, gourmet catering, and a photographer to capture every moment. We sailed to Capri, where I explored the famous Blue Grotto, shopped at boutiques that probably cost more than most people's monthly salaries, and dined at restaurants with waiting lists longer than their kids' college funds. The yacht photos were spectacular. Me lounging on the deck in a designer bikini, champagne flute in hand, with a dramatic coastline of Capri in the background. The lunch spread on the yacht's dining table looked like something from a luxury magazine. And the sunset photos, taken as we sailed back to Positano, were so beautiful they looked almost fake. Last day in paradise. Private yacht to Capri, Blue Grotto adventure, shopping in the most exclusive boutiques, and sunset sailing back to Positano. Some experiences are worth every penny. Motorboat emoji, blue heart emoji, hashtag Capri, hashtag yacht life, hashtag paradise, hashtag unforgettable. That's when Jessica called. I was sitting on my balcony, enjoying a final glass of wine and watching the lights twinkle along the coastline, when my phone rang. For a moment, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. Sarah. Her voice was quiet, almost subdued. This trip. It's incredible. I've been watching your posts all weekend, and I need to apologize. I waited. We were wrong. I was wrong. When I said you wouldn't fit in because you don't have kids, that was horrible. And seeing your trip, seeing how amazing your life is, it made me realize how stupid we've been. You're living this incredible, free, adventurous life, and we're sitting here at a lake house complaining about mosquitoes and arguing over whose turn it is to watch the kids. She paused, and I could hear voices in the background, the other moms, probably dissecting every detail of my posts. But there was something else I needed to understand before I could even consider forgiveness. The weekend had given me more than just revenge, it had given me clarity about what I really wanted from these relationships moving forward. Jessica, I said, swirling the wine in my glass, can I ask you something honestly? Of course. What exactly made you realize you were wrong? Was it seeing me hurt and excluded, or was it seeing what you were missing out on? The silence stretched between us across the Atlantic. I could almost hear her wrestling with the question. She started, then stopped. God, Sarah, that's a hard question. It's an important one. Another pause. In the background, I could hear Amanda saying something about she's right though and Rebecca's voice adding we really messed up. If I'm being completely honest, Jessica finally said, it was both. But if I'm being even more honest, it was probably seeing what we were missing out on that hit first. And I hate that about myself. I had to give her credit for the honesty. This weekend was supposed to be our big break from mom life, she continued. Our chance to reconnect and remember who we were before kids. But instead, we spent most of it scrolling through your posts and realizing that we've become exactly the kind of people we used to make fun of. What do you mean? Remember in college when we'd see those women who got married and suddenly couldn't talk about anything except their husbands? How we swore we'd never become so one-dimensional. I did remember. We'd been pretty judgmental about it, actually. We became the mom version of those women. Everything became about our kids, our parenting choices, our domestic lives. We lost ourselves so completely that we forgot there was a world beyond playdates and preschool enrollment. This was getting interesting. And my trip reminded you of that? Your trip reminded us that you never lost yourself. You kept growing, kept exploring, kept being interesting. While we were getting smaller, you were getting bigger. And instead of admiring that or learning from it, we excluded you because your growth made us feel bad about our stagnation. Now we were getting somewhere. Amanda said something tonight that really stuck with me, Jessica continued. She said, Sarah didn't change, we did. And not in a good way. She's right. You're still the same curious, adventurous, intelligent woman you always were. We're the ones who became boring. I took another sip of wine, considering my response. The truth was, I had changed, I'd become more confident, more independent, more willing to prioritize my own happiness. But I understood what she meant. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know, she said honestly. I'd like to think we can find our way back to being the kind of friends who add value to each other's lives instead of just existing in the same social circle out of habit. That's going to require some work, Jess. I know. We all know. And if you're willing to give us another chance, we're ready to put in that work. Before I could respond, I heard Maria's voice in the background asking to talk to me. Jessica must have put me on speaker. Sarah, it's Maria. I owe you an apology too. I was actually the one who suggested we should make the lake house trip moms only. I convinced Jessica that including you would change the dynamic. This was news to me. I'd assumed the exclusion was Jessica's idea entirely. I told the group that we needed a safe space to complain about our husbands and talk about mom's struggles without feeling judged by someone who doesn't understand, Maria continued. But the truth is, I was intimidated by you. Intimidated by me? You make choices that I'm too scared to make. You travel alone, you prioritize your own happiness, you're not afraid to be different. I've been married for 8 years and I still won't go to a movie by myself because I'm afraid of what people will think. This conversation was taking a turn I hadn't expected. Your confidence made me feel insecure about my own choices, Maria admitted. So instead of dealing with my own issues, I found reasons to exclude you. Lisa's voice joined the conversation. Sarah, I need to tell you something too. I've been following your Instagram for months, not just the Italy posts. Every time you posted about a spontaneous weekend trip or a new restaurant or even just a peaceful evening at home reading a book, I felt this pang of jealousy. Jealousy about what? About how content you seem with your life. I love my kids, but I haven't felt truly content in years. I'm always worried about something, whether they're eating enough vegetables, hitting their developmental milestones, getting too much screen time. You seem to just enjoy things. When's the last time I enjoyed anything without feeling guilty about it? Amanda's voice was next. Can I add something? Sarah, your posts from Italy weren't just beautiful, they were aspirational. Not because of the luxury, but because of the joy. Every photo showed someone who was genuinely happy with her choices. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way about my own life. This was turning into an impromptu group therapy session, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I don't want you to think your lives are wrong because they're different from mine, I said carefully. Being a mother is a valid choice that brings its own rewards. But we've been using motherhood as an excuse to stop growing, Rebecca added. And we've been surrounding ourselves with other people who've made the same choice, creating this echo chamber where personal stagnation is not just acceptable but expected. The conversation was getting heavy, but it was also the most honest discussion we'd had in years. Here's what I need from you if we're going to rebuild these friendships, I said, setting down my wine glass and choosing my words carefully. I need you to stop treating me like my life is either a cautionary tale or a fantasy. It's just different. I need you to remember that I'm a complete person with my own challenges and insecurities, not just the fun childless friend who exists to make your lives more interesting. Fair, Jessica said immediately. And I need you to start valuing yourselves as individuals again, not just as extensions of your children. Because the truth is, you're all interesting, intelligent women who have just forgotten how to access those parts of yourselves. How do we do that? Amanda asked quietly. The same way you do anything else, one choice at a time. Take a class. Read a book that has nothing to do with parenting. Plan a date with your husband where you don't talk about the kids. Remember what you used to be passionate about before children consumed your identity. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with each woman sharing things they'd given up or forgotten about themselves since becoming mothers. Rebecca used to paint watercolors. Lisa had been passionate about local politics. Amanda had dreamed of opening her own photography studio. Maria had been learning Italian before her first pregnancy derailed her language studies. By the end of the call, we'd made a pact. They would each choose one thing they used to love and commit to reconnecting with it. And I would try to be more patient with their journey back to themselves, understanding that personal growth is harder when you're responsible for small humans. Sarah, Jessica said as we were wrapping up the call, thank you for not writing us off completely. We didn't deserve your patience tonight. You deserved honesty, I replied. And honestly, I've missed having friends who challenge me to be better. You used to do that before everything became about your kids. We want to be those friends again, Maria said. Then prove it, I said, but not unkindly. Show me that you're willing to be interesting again. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony for another hour, processing the conversation. The revenge had been satisfying, but this conversation had been revelatory. These women hadn't just excluded me because I didn't have children, they'd excluded me because my contentment with my choices highlighted their own dissatisfaction with theirs. The next morning, I posted one final photo from Italy, a sunrise shot from my balcony with a more reflective caption. Last morning in paradise. This trip taught me that sometimes the best revenge is just living well. But it also reminded me that true friendship requires honesty, growth, and the courage to be vulnerable with each other. Here's to second chances and the friends brave enough to ask for them, airplane emoji, blue heart emoji, #growth, #friendship, #second chances. The girls and I have been talking all weekend about how jealous we are. Not just of the trip, but of your freedom. Your ability to just do things. Amanda said she can't remember the last time she did something just for herself. Rebecca keeps talking about how she used to travel before kids, and now she's lucky if she gets a weekend away. Lisa actually cried looking at your dinner photos because she realized she hasn't had an adult conversation without interruption in months. I took a sip of wine and let her continue. We miss you, Sarah. We miss having you in our lives. And maybe Maybe we need you more than we realized. You remind us that there's a world outside of playdates and PTA meetings. You show us what's possible when you're brave enough to choose a different path. It was a nice speech, but I wasn't ready to forgive quite yet. Jessica, I said finally, I appreciate the apology. But you didn't just exclude me from one weekend. You systematically pushed me out of your lives because I didn't fit your new identity as mothers. You made me feel like my friendship was worthless because I didn't have children. I know, she whispered. I know we did. And I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Are you sorry because you hurt me, or because you realized what you were missing out on? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Both, she said honestly. Both, and I know that makes me sound terrible, but it's the truth. I'm sorry we hurt you, and I'm sorry we were too stupid to realize what we were giving up. Monday morning, I posted my final set of photos from Italy. The airplane lounge, my first-class seat, and a caption that summed up my entire weekend. Heading home after an incredible solo adventure. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's living so well that others realize what they've lost. Thanks, Positano, for reminding me that the best company is often your own. Airplane emoji, Italy emoji, hashtag solo travel, hashtag living my best life, hashtag grateful, hashtag homeward bound. The responses were immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from friends and acquaintances I hadn't heard from in months, and a flood of direct messages from people wanting to know how I'd planned such an amazing trip. But the most interesting responses came from my former mom group friends. They were different now, more reflective, more appreciative, and definitely more interested in maintaining our friendship. The shift in their behavior was fascinating to watch unfold over the following weeks. It wasn't just that they wanted to be friends again, their entire perspective on life seemed to have changed. My Italy posts had apparently sparked some serious soul-searching about choices, priorities, and what it really meant to live a fulfilling life. Jessica was the first to reach out with what I can only describe as a complete personality transformation. Dawn was the woman who could only talk about sleep schedules and developmental milestones. Instead, she started texting me articles about travel destinations, asking for book recommendations, and even inquiring about my skincare routine after noticing how relaxed and glowing I looked in my Italy photos. Sarah, she texted one Tuesday evening, I've been thinking a lot about what you said before your trip, about how we become boring. I looked at my Instagram feed today, and it's literally just pictures of my kids eating various foods and playground check-ins. When did I stop being interesting? This was the opening I'd been waiting for. Not to gloat, but to have a real conversation about how motherhood doesn't have to mean the death of individual identity. You didn't stop being interesting, I replied. You just stopped prioritizing the parts of yourself that existed before Aiden. Those parts are still there. What followed was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. Jessica admitted that somewhere along the way, she'd started believing that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything else about herself. She'd stopped reading books that weren't about parenting. She'd stopped following current events unless they related to child safety. She'd even stopped listening to music that wasn't kid-friendly. I realized last weekend that I couldn't even hold a conversation about anything other than mom stuff, she confessed. When Amanda tried to talk about that new Netflix series, I had no idea what she was talking about. I haven't watched anything meant for adults in months. This revelation seemed to be spreading through the group like a contagious awakening. Amanda had started taking evening walks alone, something she hadn't done since her daughter was born 3 years ago. She described it as remembering what it felt like to be alone with my thoughts. Rebecca had signed up for an online photography class, dusting off the camera she'd abandoned when she became pregnant. She posted her first non-kid photo in over a year, an artistic shot of her morning coffee that actually showed real skill and creativity. Lisa had started reading again. Not parenting books or children's literature, but actual novels. She posted a photo of her current book, a literary fiction title, with the caption, Rediscovering the Joy of Stories That Don't End With and Then Everyone Went to Sleep. Maria, always the organizer, had started researching adult education classes at the community college. She was considering taking a Spanish conversation class, something she'd talked about for years but never prioritized. But the most significant change was in how they talked about their children. Instead of every conversation revolving around developmental milestones and parenting strategies, they started sharing stories about funny things their kids said or cute moments they'd experienced. The obsessive documentation of every mundane activity had been replaced by genuine appreciation for special moments. The transformation wasn't just internal, it was affecting their relationships with their spouses and families too. Jessica's husband Mark mentioned to his co-workers that his wife had suddenly become fun again. She'd suggested they hire a babysitter and go out for dinner, not to discuss Aiden's preschool options, but just to enjoy each other's company. Amanda and her husband started having no-kid talk dates where they focused entirely on each other and topics that interested them as individuals. She described it as remembering why we fell in love in the first place. The ripple effects extended beyond their personal lives. The mom group itself began evolving. Their group chat, which had previously been dominated by photos of lunch plates and requests for advice about sleep training, started including articles about travel, restaurant recommendations, and discussions about books and movies. They began planning activities that weren't centered around their children. A wine tasting class, a cooking workshop, a art gallery opening. Things that reminded them they were complex individuals with interests beyond their offspring. But perhaps the most telling change was in their social media presence. Gone were the constant updates about potty training victories and afternoon snack choices. Instead, their posts began showcasing their rediscovered personalities. Jessica shared a photo of herself reading on her porch with the caption, "Afternoon book break while Aiden naps." Sometimes the best company is a good story. Amanda posted pictures from her photography walks, showing off her artistic eye and demonstrating that she had talents beyond diaper changing. Rebecca shared her latest culinary experiments, actual grown-up food that didn't come in goldfish-shaped packages. The change in their online presence was so dramatic that other friends started commenting. Sarah Mitchell, a mutual friend from college who lived across the country, wrote on Jessica's book photo, "It's so nice to see you being you again. I miss this version of my friend." Even their husbands noticed the difference. Mark posted a rare social media tribute to Jessica that read, "My wife has been reminding me lately why I fell in love with her 10 years ago. Watching her rediscover her passions has been amazing. Lucky to be married to such an interesting woman." The most interesting development came when Rebecca's mother-in-law, notorious for her criticism of Rebecca's parenting choices, commented on one of Rebecca's photography posts, "I'm so proud to see you pursuing your artistic talents again. A fulfilled mother is a better mother." Coming from a woman who had previously criticized Rebecca for not being devoted enough to her children, this was a seismic shift in family dynamics. About 6 weeks after my Italy trip, the group dynamics had shifted so completely that they started including me in conversations that had nothing to do with travel or childless perspectives. Jessica texted me a photo of a book she was reading, asking if I'd read it and what I thought. Amanda sent me her latest photography shots for feedback. Lisa asked for restaurant recommendations for a date night she was planning. They weren't just tolerating my presence anymore, they were actively seeking my input on their newly expanded interests. I had gone from being the excluded childless friend to being the sophisticated advisor they consulted on matters of culture, travel, and personal fulfillment. The transformation reached its peak when Maria suggested they start a book club, not for parenting books, but for actual literature. She proposed they meet monthly, adults only, to discuss books and ideas that had nothing to do with their roles as mothers. "We used to be smart, interesting women," she said in the group text. "Sarah's trip reminded me that we still can be. We just forgot for a while." Amanda responded immediately, "Yes. I miss having intellectual conversations that don't revolve around whether organic snacks are worth the extra cost." Rebecca added, "I want to read books that make me think about something other than sleep schedules and playdates." Lisa chimed in, "Count me in. I need adult stimulation that doesn't come from reality TV." And Jessica, the architect of my original exclusion, wrote, "This is exactly what we need. Sarah, will you help us choose the first book? You always had the best taste in literature." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had told me I wouldn't understand their mom conversations was now asking me to lead their intellectual renaissance. But instead of savoring the reversal, I found myself genuinely excited about the possibility. These women had been my friends for years before they became mothers. Reconnecting with their pre-baby personalities felt like finding treasures I'd thought were lost forever. The book club became a reality, and our first meeting was a revelation. Sitting in Jessica's living room, after the kids were in bed, discussing themes of identity and self-discovery in the novel we'd chosen, felt like traveling back in time to our college days when we'd spend hours debating literature and philosophy. But it was better than our college discussions because now we brought life experience and depth to our conversations. Rebecca's insights about the protagonist's struggle with artistic ambition resonated with her own journey back to photography. Amanda's observations about the character's relationship with freedom and choice reflected her own awakening about the importance of maintaining individual identity within marriage and motherhood. The evening flew by, and as we were cleaning up wine glasses and putting away the remnants of the cheese board I'd brought, Jessica pulled me aside. "Sarah, I need you to know that your Italy trip didn't just make us jealous. It woke us up. We'd become so focused on being good mothers that we forgot we were anything else. Watching you live so fully, so authentically, reminded us that we used to be interesting people with passions and dreams." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I don't regret becoming a mother, and I wouldn't change having Aiden for anything. But I realized I was using motherhood as an excuse to stop growing, stop challenging myself, stop being curious about the world. Your posts from Italy showed me what I was missing, not the luxury or the travel specifically, but the willingness to prioritize my own growth and happiness." It was the most thoughtful apology I could have imagined, and it opened the door for a conversation about balance, priorities, and what it really means to live a fulfilling life regardless of your parental status. The book club meetings became monthly highlights for all of us. We rotated hosting duties, and each woman brought something unique to our discussions. Jessica chose books about adventure and self-discovery. Amanda selected novels with strong visual elements that appeal to her photographer's eye. Rebecca picked stories about family dynamics and relationships. Lisa gravitated toward books about personal transformation. And Maria, ever the organizer, kept us on track with discussion questions and thoughtful prompts. After a few months of meetings, we were comfortable enough with each other to have deeper conversations about how we'd all changed over the years. Amanda admitted that she felt pressure to lose herself in motherhood because she thought that's what good mothers did. Rebecca confessed that she'd been jealous of my freedom but hadn't known how to express it without sounding ungrateful for her family. Lisa revealed that she'd been struggling with postpartum depression but had been afraid to seek help because she thought it meant she wasn't cut out for motherhood. These conversations were deeper and more meaningful than anything we'd shared during the height of their mom group phase. We were relating to each other as complete human beings again, not just as women. Defined by our reproductive choices. The success of our book club inspired other changes in the group dynamic. Amanda sent me a long message about how my trip had sparked conversations with her husband about making more time for adult experiences. Rebecca started planning a girls' trip for the following year, specifically mentioning how she wanted to include me. Lisa asked for restaurant recommendations because she was planning to surprise her husband with a fancy date night. And Maria, ever the planner, wanted to know if I'd help her organize a group trip to Europe. Jessica, meanwhile, had been doing some serious soul-searching. Over the next few weeks, she reached out consistently, not to talk about her kids or mom drama, but to ask about my life, my work, my travel plans. She seemed genuinely interested in rebuilding our friendship on more equal terms. The lake house weekend had apparently been a disaster. According to the stories that filtered back to me through various sources, the accommodations were subpar, the activities were limited, and the group spent most of their time scrolling through my Italy photos instead of bonding. Several of them cut their weekend short, claiming emergencies at home but really just wanting to get back to their comfortable routines and plan their own escape fantasies. 3 months later, something interesting happened. Jessica reached out about planning a girls' trip, not a mom trip, but a real adult getaway. She wanted to include me, she said, because I clearly knew how to travel in style. Would I consider helping them plan something special for the following year? I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds before saying yes. Not because I'd forgiven them completely, but because I'd realized something important during those days in Italy. The best revenge isn't holding grudges or staying angry. It's living so authentically and joyfully that others can't help but want to be part of your life again. We ended up planning a long weekend in Napa Valley. Nothing as extravagant as my Italian adventure, but certainly more sophisticated than a lake house with broken air conditioning. I helped them choose a boutique hotel, made restaurant reservations, and even arranged for a private wine tasting experience. The trip was a success, but more importantly, it reset the dynamic of our friendship. They stopped treating me like the childless friend who couldn't possibly understand their lives, and I stopped feeling like I had to prove my worth through elaborate displays of freedom and luxury. Don't get me wrong, I still post amazing travel photos, I still enjoy my disposable income, and I still make spontaneous decisions that would be impossible with children. But now it comes from a place of genuine joy rather than spite. The mom group still exists, but it's evolved. They still talk about kid stuff, but they also make room for conversations about travel, careers, relationships, and dreams that extend beyond the soccer field and PTA meetings. And when they plan their getaways now, I'm always invited, not as the token childless friend, but as someone who brings a different perspective to their circle. Last month, Jessica sent me a text that made me smile, planning a weekend trip with the girls next spring. Thinking somewhere warm with good food and better wine. You free to help us live our best lives? I responded with a photo from my latest weekend getaway, a spa resort in Scottsdale where I was enjoying a massage overlooking the desert. Always free to help you remember that life is meant to be lived. Let's plan something amazing. The revenge was sweet, but the reconciliation was sweeter. Sometimes you have to show people what they're missing before they realize what they had. And sometimes the most powerful response to exclusion isn't anger or arguments, it's living so well that others can't help but want to be included in your story. My Italy trip cost me about $8,000. The friends I got back? Priceless. Well, almost priceless. They definitely cost me $8,000, but it was worth every penny to watch them realize that friendship doesn't require matching life circumstances, it just requires mutual respect and the wisdom to know that different paths can still lead to the same destination. I still don't have kids, and I still don't want them. But I do have friends who understand that my choices are just as valid as theirs, and that's made all the difference. The mom group learned that excluding people based on parental status is not just mean, it's stupid. They gave up access to someone with disposable income, flexible schedule, and excellent taste in travel destinations. Their loss became their lesson, and my petty revenge became the foundation for better friendships. Not bad for a weekend in Italy.